Okay, Ainhoa, let's talk about training for the next 2 weeks. This is something I've put together for one of my other athletes in the past. Since we're doing remote, I figured this might be a nice way just to update you on training, give you a better idea of what I'm looking for, and just be able to give you another point of reference as you work through the next 2 weeks. So let's start with this week, June 16th. So we have two workouts. We're going to do 5 mile tempo and some 200s on Tuesday. So for the 5 mile tempo, since we've already done a similar amount of volume but broken up, I do want to be careful with the pace. I know you're fast enough and you're fit enough that 6 minutes is probably going to feel pretty controlled for you. But since this is the first really continuous effort, I want to make sure we're keeping it pretty controlled. The other part of it with the 200s is that they get pretty fast. This is going really 800-meter race pace and faster. So starting off at 33s and working down to about 30s. If you end up being a little bit quicker at the end, that's fine. But this is probably going to be one of the more significant lactate workouts that you're going to feel, at least up to this point, since so much of what we've been doing has been very aerobic. Keep the rest pretty generous on it. I'm okay if you want to take even more time than what a 200-meter walk gives you, but I think you're probably going to be in a good spot where the 33s and 32s don't feel like anything crazy, and then 31s down to 30s at least feels like a true sprint. Maybe not quite all out, but I think by the time we've worked through that much volume in a workout, I think you'll feel it a pretty good amount. But either way, I want to build a little bit of comfort working faster than race pace, especially since we're going to be doing a road mile not too long from now. So this just gives you that nice dose of it. It's kind of an early step for things. We'll see a lot more workouts later on, particularly end of June and mostly in July, where it's a little bit more lactate focused and kind of gets you into that sharper feeling. For Friday's workout, I want to do a 2 mile tempo and then do two sets of 800 4x400. So this is basically just an extension of the 600s and 400s that we've already been doing at 5K pace. This is now just making it a little bit longer. So again, keep the tempo pretty controlled. That's just there to be able to give us a little more volume, keep it aerobic, and just put a little bit of fatigue in our legs as we go into race pace stuff. So the 800, I think, is going to feel fast for you, but not anything insane. And the 400s are basically just there to keep tacking on more volume and just make it so that things are progressing more and more towards what we're going to see in a race. So rest between our reps for at least the two sets are going to be fairly quick. Between the tempo and the actual sets themselves, we'll do 2 minutes. If you feel like you need any more time than that, that's fine. But I think you'll feel pretty comfortable with those. I know we talked about it, but we do have a rest day on Saturday. I'm okay if you do a run. Just it's there to be a reminder that you can take a day off. If you do end up running, this will be probably pretty close to maybe not quite 60-mile week, but it'll probably put you in the like 56, 57-mile range. Next week's basically a 60-mile week. So, if you want to cross train on that day, that's fine. If you want to go for a really light run, that's fine, but it's also completely fine to just take a full day off. I think taking one, every 2 to 4 weeks probably makes sense for you. I know you've gotten used to running basically every day, but I think it's not a bad thing just to maybe catch yourself a little bit early before you need to take one. Long runs bumped up from 10 miles to 11, should be fine there. And then next week. So 10 by 1K, this will be the longest session that you've done. Um, Keep in mind that even though this is broken up and it's going to feel a lot easier, it is still 6 miles of, basically threshold or slightly faster running. Let that be the stimulus that's going to be driving the workout. There's plenty of time throughout the rest of your career for us to be able to make things faster or more continuous or anything like that. For now, since you've only ever done 9 by 1K, let the fact that doing the extra 1,000 meters is enough to probably drive some kind of improvement. I'd rather you start close to 345. That's probably me asking for a lot. I know that you're more likely to start closer to 340, but either way, I'd rather be on the safe side and work our way down. If you end up finishing a little quicker than what the 339s are, that's fine, but I really would rather keep it closer to that like 340 region. Again, next time we do this workout, we can always go faster. But I want to get a win from it. I want you to feel pretty good and also realize that some of the workouts surrounding this are a good bit faster. So this one being a little bit anchored on the slower side and just getting in a nice accumulated volume is kind of what we're shooting for. Now, moving on. Next Friday's workout. This one is probably the one that has the most room for us to make mistakes on. So, simple enough workout to understand. It's going to be 3 sets of 1 mile, 2 by 400. Each of the miles is going to be basically right around 10K pace. Each of the 400s is going to start off at kind of a very pedestrian mile for you and then work down to goal mile pace. So basically being around 75 on the early reps and working down to 72. The part that's going to get tricky in this workout is that these are fairly hard gear changes. So leading off with a mile that you already know is going to be faster than threshold, there's going to be that tendency to go fairly fast on it. Like it wouldn't shock me if the way that you process it is, oh, I need to get after this a little bit. And then we accidentally go 80s instead of 85s. So just be smart on that first mile. And even on those first two 400s where they're supposed to be 75, again, just be careful. You're going to be thinking, all right, this is a big gear change from what 85s are. I have to go 10 seconds faster. It's easy to overshoot that and now all of a sudden be doing, 73s right off the bat or 72s. And now we've run into an issue. So, what I want to make sure that we're doing during this is as much as we can, err on the side of being a little too easy and then work down as we go. When you go back from the 400s to another mile, again, it's going to be hard to slow down as much as we need to. Catch yourself early, check the first 200 or the first 400 as much as you can, just so we don't get into hot water too soon. But either way, what this workout should do is it's going to give you a mile that is a little bit less aerobic than what we're used to, but still being quite aerobic. So you'll build up a little bit of lactate during it. And then the 400s, we should build up a fair amount more. When we go back to the mile, it's going to be that like fast but slightly uncomfortable pace where we have to learn how to work through that lactate. And then back to 400s where it's us learning, hey, now that I'm getting tired, this is how I learn how to run the goal mile pace that I want to run. I have the rest being fairly generous. We're going to be doing 2 minutes in between all the reps and 4 minutes in between the sets. I think that's more than what you need, but even if you feel amazing, keep the recoveries as they are. Again, we can always take a step forward in the future and scale that back. But for now, I would much rather rely on the fact that this is already a pretty long workout for what it is. You're going to get a mile and a half at goal mile pace, basically, and you're going to get 3 miles at probably right around 10K pace. It's an easy workout for you to push when you get to the last set or even the last like set and a half, but I don't want it to be a hammer fest the whole way through. Only other thing going on for next week is another 11-mile run. And then day before our Friday workouts, we've got 6 200s for this week, basically just at like mile 1500 pace. For you, do like 36s. And then for next week, it'll be 5 by 60. When you're trying to measure out 60 meters, if you're not sure what that is, if there's a football field next to you, 65 yards is basically 60 meters. Or if you're trying to measure it out a little bit more precisely, but you don't have a wheel, count the number of steps that you take between the 100-meter start line and the 110 hurdle start line. For me, it's 14 steps. So if I just do 14 steps times 6, I can get a pretty accurate 60 meters when I'm walking it out. For you, it might be a little bit different. But either way, get as close as you can to it. We're basically aiming so that we hit top speed for those last like 15, 20 meters and take full rest. I would much rather you take more rest than less and make sure you have a good warm up. So I would do full dynamic stretches. I would do sprint drills. I would do quite a few strides. Make sure you're more warm than not, just so we don't pull anything. But yeah, that should give you the next 2 weeks. We'll make some adjustments if we need to, but I think it puts you in a good spot. Gives us 2 more weeks after until we do that road mile. And then almost a month still until we start getting into where your championship actually is. So good luck this week.